Professor Frederiga Bindi, thank you for coming to UNC today. You're an expert on European politics and on transatlantic relations. You have done work on the EU. My first question, has the EU become a global player? Is the EU somewhere in the world now?
It's definitely somewhere in the world, actually it's in several places in the world, but as such, no, it's not a global player yet.
Will it ever get there? Is it on the way to getting there?
I do hope so. I do hope so. I do actually think that it is absolutely necessary that Europe unifies and becomes one unified global actor on the world stage. It's important for Europe, it's important to the US, and it's important for international relations as such.
What is the current state of transatlantic relations? As you know, there have always been crises in transatlantic relations. Sometimes terrible, sometimes the relationship was much better. What about today?
I would say the general state of transatlantic relations in terms of leadership is good. I think in terms of leadership there is an ongoing conversation and some understanding and consensus. Where I see the problem is more at the public opinion level, because first of all, TTIP is very divisive in Europe. There are
Can you briefly explain what that is?
It's irrational, to be very sincere. It's rational. People think they're going to harm.
It's a neutral trade and investment relationship, the partnership which is being negotiated.
Ah, sorry. What is the TTIP? The TTIP is a transatlantic. It's a transatlantic treaty that would boost, would liberalize trades, and therefore would boost trade. And the United States is negotiating the TTP, which is more advanced, with the Pacific, with Pacific and Asia, and the TTIP with Europe, which is a little bit behind.
What's the problem?
I personally see no problem with that. I actually see advantage. Anything that liberalize, I see as an advantage. Also, living between the two words, the more liberalized they become, the happier I am. But there is, you know, especially in times of incertitude, people fear what is unknown. And that is, anytime we have a free trade agreement, there is a part of the population which is opposing it. That was the case with the European integration, you know, the ECSC at the beginning, EEC. Anytime there's a liberation treaty, people fear it.
Can I ask you, why is that being negotiated at the moment, not 5 or 10 years ago? Has that anything to do with China?
It's actually a result of a long process, because the US and Europeans are each other's best partner, but the reality is that the European Union has negotiated a number of agreements, trade agreements or heavier or political agreements with a number of actors around, across the world, but never with the US. The US is a result of a long process which started basically with the Clinton administration and transatlantic dialogue and so on and so forth. So it's something that we already have, for instance, with Canada and with Mexico, and it would be good to have with the US as well.
And that is something which strengthens or at the moment weakens the transatlantic relationship?
It would definitely strengthen it. It would definitely strengthen it, but as I said, the public opinion level, there is lots of mistrust in Europe especially.
Thank you. Often it is claimed by public opinion that Europe is really Germany and that Angela Merkel is really the leader of Europe, which of course does injustice to the many other countries and leaders in Europe, or is there something in there?
Look, in personal terms, I mean, if you look at the personalities, she's by all means the only leader Europe has. I mean, she's the most consistent, also the longest the one who's been longest in power, leader among the Europeans. There is no one that rivals her. And economically, there is no question that Germany is the strongest partner. Politically, it's not only the strongest partner. I would say that France comes along together with Britain. That, as an Italian, I should add Italy, but I'm not sure that I should say that as an analyst.
Thank you. And what about the Greek crisis, the Euro crisis? It still hasn't been resolved. How, and the United States and Europe view that differently. The United States is much less in favor of that policy of austerity which the Greeks claim about than, let's say, the Germans and some other countries.
You know, austerity policies they were needed, especially because we all know that one of the reasons why there is the crisis in Greece today is because at the origin, the the government faked the numbers to join the Economic and Monetary Union. So there was a strong responsibility there. So those measures were needed. The problem is that austerity in a period of crisis is killing the population. And if you don't allow growth, then the situation will never change. And that's not only for Greece, it's the same for Italy, for instance, which is a bigger country, stronger country, but has somehow a similar problem with still zero growth. And you can physically touch when you visit it that the country is stuck.
Thank you. There has been a united transatlantic approach towards Russia over the Ukraine crisis, but it's a united front which is not holding all that well. Is there a different transatlantic approach? Is there a different American and a different European approach, or how would you see that?
Look, there are several European approaches, and I think that it would be wiser of the American administration to listen more to those which are in favor of a partnership with Russia rather than trying to convince them or even dictate them to be anti-Russians. I mean, Russia is a neighbor to Europe, it's an important player in world affairs, and today more than ever we need Russia on board. So I think that in this case the different voices should be all listened by the Americans, and probably the voices which are farther away from what we think here in Washington should be listened to.
Thank you. Let me ask you one final question. What would be the advice which you would give the new incoming administration how to make American foreign policy more effective in the world and perhaps more to the advantage of the Western world?
First of all, there is a serious need of deciding what is America's goal in foreign policy today. I mean, it's clear that America alone cannot fix everything. Actually, since that started to be the case, that we thought that America alone could fix the world is becoming more dangerous, more chaotic, and basically everywhere we intervene, we left a mess behind us. So we really need to ask ourselves, what is that we want? Number one, what is that we can really achieve? Number two, what have we stopped to do? Number three. So what have we stopped to do? It's a soft power. I mean, we used to invest a lot in education, in visits, and in the attractiveness of the American model, and we stopped doing that, at least partially, and we have to start again working on this. We want people to come here, know our country, our kids to go there, and know the others to be more effective. Number two, we have to decide. So I think we'll have to be more realist in terms of what we want. I mean, and on the part where we're idealists, stick with it. The world is a very dangerous place, and the problem is that contrary to the Cold War, where danger was somehow controlled, now it's uncontrolled. So we need to have as many trusted partners as we can on board, and so we need Europe, definitely, to go together. We need Russia. And when we say that when we implement foreign policy for certain values, then we need to be consistent. We can't move war to Afghanistan and Iraq on the saying that we do that for women, and then our best ally is Saudi Arabia. That's inconsistent.
Thank you very much. This seems to be very good advice. Frederiga Bindi, thank you very much for your insights. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Klaus. Thank you for inviting me.
You're welcome.